Hey guys, we're going to be reading a book called A Chair for My Mother by Vera B. Williams. And while we're reading this book, I want you to listen for any wants or needs. Wants and needs is something we talked about earlier this year. Wants are things that we don't need to live. We just want them because they make us happier. Needs are things that we have to live, like food and water and a shelter over our heads. Those are all things that we need. So while I'm reading this book, make sure you're listening for the different things in this book and thinking about, is this something that this family wants or is this something that the family needs? My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me, and every time I put half of my money into a jar. It takes a really long time to fill up a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all of her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all of the coins into the jar. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she is so tired that she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips. Some days she only has a little. Then she looks worried, but each evening, every single shiny coin goes into this jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually, Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. So this whole family is putting the money that they save into this jar right here. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we're going to take out all of the money and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get ones covered in velvet with roses all over it. We're going to get the best chair in the whole world. This is because our old chairs burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All of our chairs burned. So did our sofa. So did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. So this is the chair that they want. Is that something that they need, or is that something that they want to make them happy? My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals, she had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying that I liked yellow ones. Then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see a lot of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, she's here, she's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. But everything else in our house was spoiled. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow, the floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. So they moved into a new home because a home or shelter is something that everybody needs. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream. And they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed frame from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us a beautiful rug. My mother's other sister, Sally, had made us red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans, silverware, and dishes. My cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You are all the kindest people," she said, "and we thank you very much. It's lucky we're young and that we can start all over." So their neighbors and their family members were so helpful to help them rebuild their home and their life and get things that they needed for their house. That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. There's no good place for me to take a load off of my feet, she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. So that is how come Mama brought home the biggest jar that she could find at the diner, and all the coins started to go into the jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so that I could put it in. That's amazing. That's a lot of coins. How much money do you think is in there? Do you think it's enough to buy a chair? After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full, Mama said. My mother brought home little paper wrappers for all the nickels and the dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills. Then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. That's the bank. And right there we can see the stack of $10 bills that the bank gave them to buy the chair with. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and small ones, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and harder ones. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks in the 3 Bears trying out all of the different chairs. Finally, we found the chair that we were dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. They came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. Do you see the chair? Right there? The chair that they've been wanting for a really long time. I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it while they carried it to the door. That does look really comfy. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Mama and Grandma and I sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now, Grandma sits in it while she talks with people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit with her, and she can reach up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. That end, and there's that picture that they took of all 3 of them in that beautiful comfy chair. They look really happy. So that was a really nice book. What were some of the things that you noticed that were needs in this book? What did they need after the fire to help them live? They needed shelter and food and water. They had their family and their friends to help them get through that tough time. What did they want? They wanted a chair, a big comfy chair to sit down and be really comfortable after her mom got home from work. So did they get what they wanted? Yeah, but it took a lot of hard work. Thanks for listening.